If you are here for the first time this morning, welcome. We are today mourning the loss of our patriarch, Dr. David Martin. I hope that you experience the joy that we hold for David and Lindy and the whole Martin family this morning. Just speaking on behalf of the clergy just for a second. We were sitting in David and Lindy's kitchen Friday afternoon, and I saw something on the refrigerator that I just could not believe. I was in shock. I even said something to Ben and to Lindy and to Josh. I just said, I can't believe that's there. Back in September of 2020, David came to see me and said, you really ought to, when we come back, you really ought to have all the preachers process. I said, okay. And then the next day he called me and he said, well, are all the preachers scheduled to process yet? I said, no, not yet. Can you give me a day or two on it? And then we did it. We got it lined up, and Jim Mitchell and Pat Shannon and all of us, Barbara and Joey and Reverend Hale and Bruce Griffith, Reverend Griffith and Reverend Davis. Jono wasn't clergy yet, or otherwise he'd have been in the picture. They had that picture on their refrigerator of us. I couldn't get Jen to hang that picture on our refrigerator at our house. You understand? I don't know anybody that's ever treated clergy better than David Martin. To have his presence, to have his strength, to have his, it was a gift, and it is a loss. I hurt for Reverend Davis and Reverend Malik that he's not going to be there for their ordination. He talked to me frequently about their ordination and their process and their journey and his support of theirs. He would say to me often, now you know they came into the process at Smyrna First. You know that this happened at Smyrna First. So they're Smyrna First people, their entire ministry. I said, well, what about me, David? I mean, am I? He goes, you should have met us earlier. I wish I had. I don't know that I've ever known someone who was a better champion for us as clergy. David is everywhere, was everywhere. In my little bit over 8 years, I've probably done about 100 funerals, roughly 100 funerals. My guess is David's been at probably 90 of those. I don't think he knew everybody, but it was a church funeral, church family, so he was there, black suit, right over there, present. A couple of years ago, we had a funeral here in this sanctuary, church member, and it was someone that was not part of this church that spoke in the funeral. Many of you will remember it. And stood up and said some of the most horrible things you have ever heard anyone say in a room, much less a funeral. It was bad, and I was watching your faces, and it's kind of like it is right now. Like, what happened? Well, when the funeral was over, Dr. Martin came up to me and he said, Derek, when I die, do not let that man anywhere near my funeral. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. David not only handed out banana bread on your birthday and your first time visiting, he not only picked up trash, he not only put toppers on the donuts, the heart and soul of this place. He served as the chairman of the Glorifying God Capital Campaign, Capturing the Vision Campaign, chairman of the Standing on the Promises campaign. We'll close with Standing on the Promises in this service today. He taught the Biblical Connections Sunday school class. He was the one who created the executive committee. He studied churches and founded and introduced that model and created it and built it. His legacy is deep. He understood the difference between oak trees and Bradford pears better than anyone I've ever known in my life. We and generations after us will stand in the shade of the trees that he has planted for generations. I got here in 2017, and we'd been here about 2 weeks when he took me to breakfast. Vittles. Remember Vittles? I smelled like cigarette smoke for 2 weeks when I left there that day. In about 90 minutes, he gave me 50 years of history. It was the best onboarding any preacher's ever gotten anywhere. And then he began to talk to me, and at that point, Lisa Rudy and Jennifer Young were the chairs of the Strategic Planning Committee, Long Range Planning Committee, I think is what it was called. And David said to me, he said, we're going to go get a meeting scheduled with Jackie Lander soon, because we're going to need to buy that corner property. I had been here about 7 minutes at that point when he told me we're going to go buy property and start raising money. Awesome. Everybody will love that. And so we did, in about January, February, he said, it's time for you to call Jim Carmichael. All right, what am I talking to Jim about? He said, Jim's going to set up the lunch with Mrs. Landers. Jim, David said, he goes, I already got it, we're ready to go. This day right here, Jim said, we're going to meet with Mrs. Landers. And so a couple days later, David, myself, Jim Carmichael, Lisa Rudy, Jennifer Young met with Mrs. Landers and 2 of her kids at a restaurant a couple miles down the road. We walked in together, and before I could even sit down, Mrs. Landers looked at me and said, Preacher, don't sit down unless you're ready to give me $1 million. Exactly. She said, you need to know, I'm going to get my $1 million. Whether it's from you or from the Baptists, I'm going to get my $1 million. She said it just like that, didn't she? I did what any smart United Methodist preacher would do, which I've not always been, but in this moment I was smart enough to look to my left to Dr. Martin and went, he said, Preacher, sit down. The meeting began between me and Mrs. Landers, but within 3, 4, 5 minutes, it was David's show. It was Dr. Martin's show. Can you imagine right now if he had not planted those oak trees for us and we did not own that corner property right now? The ability to plant oak trees, to look around corners, and to look beyond yourself is the script that he has given us. The ability to think of future generations, the ability to think of not just Smyrna First, but for all of Smyrna and Cobb County. And I wear this today because it is my stole from Honduras, a global look Dr. Martin reminded us of. That is the script that he has given us. So as I walk into this sermon today on Family Feud, and the sermon title is no longer No Script. There's really not a title. I want to talk to you about a behavioral roadmap. We all inherit a set of scripts. And the scripts that we inherit, it help us interpret the world around us. So when you think about your family, your parents, your grandparents, what script did you inherit on what it means to be successful? What was it that you were taught in your home about what it means to be successful? What script did you inherit on feelings and emotions? Is it okay to share your feelings? Is it okay to cry? Or are you supposed to be ashamed when you cry? Is it okay for you to go to counseling when things are okay and not just falling apart? What did you inherit on your feelings and emotions? How is success determined for you, defined for you in the script that you received as a child? What were you taught about religion, about money, relationships, careers? What was the script that you were handed as a child and as a teenager and into your early 20s? What were you taught and what are you still living in? We pick up on these scripts from our earliest moment. And if we're not careful, we are Ron Burgundy and we'll read anything off that script no matter what it says. If we don't develop the ability to study and to process the scripts, we find ourselves repeating them over and over again. Our scripture today is the culmination of 3 generations of a family that are continuing to be caught in the family script. And the script ends, often as it does, when it doesn't pay attention to the script, with one in prison. So from Genesis 37, 3 through 11. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his children because he was the son of his old age, and made him an ornamented robe. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. Once Joseph had a dream, and when he told to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream that I dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright. Then your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "Are you indeed to reign over us? Are you indeed to have dominion over us?" So they hated him even more because of his dream and his words. Joseph had another dream, and he said to his brothers, "Look, I have had another dream. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." But when he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, "What kind of dream is this that you have had? Shall we indeed come, I and your mother and your brothers, and bow down to the ground before you?" So his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Did you catch the toxicity? The dad was okay with the dream until he and mama were in it. It was okay that he dreamed that about his brothers. It was okay that he dreamed that about his siblings. But hold on, you think me and your mama are going to come bow down before you? This issue of toxicity in the family is all the way from the beginning of Genesis. Abraham, Father Abraham, had many sons. Many sons had father. And they are a mess, these sons. The father of 3 religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. Abraham and Sarah have 2 sons, Isaac and Ishmael. And Isaac is the favorite. Now, there's a lot of stuff you can get into, religion and politics, but you could do a 10-part series on. We're not going to do that. We're going to stay right here with Isaac as the favored son. Isaac and Ishmael, and Isaac is the son that Abraham loves the most, that Abraham treats the best, that Abraham shows his joy in, Isaac. And then Isaac gets married to Rebekah, and they have 2 sons named Jacob and Esau. They take it just a little bit further, because not only do they have a favorite son, they have a favorite of each. Rebekah has a favorite, Jacob. Isaac has a favorite, Esau. And the story of their childhood, the story of their upbringing, is the tension between their mom and dad and the tension between them that is created by the toxicity of having favorites and treating one better than the other. So let me ask you, where did Isaac learn that behavior from? He learned it from his daddy. He parented in the same way that he was parented. The scripture lays it out clear for us that this unhealthy script is shaping them. And then Jacob has 12 sons, and his favorite son is Joseph. And this is the text that we read. Here's Joseph, arrogant and pompous, selfish, completely unaware that he is reading the script of his father and grandfather. And there's another text a little bit later where all 11 brothers are out working in the field when Joseph, the baby, is sent to look for him. I'm not the baby in the family, and I got a baby who would come see us working outside all the time. So I'm feeling a little bit of stuff about the text right now. And so he goes and he sees them and sees them out working, and he wears this coat of many colors. You remember that? Think Donny Osmond, that coat of many colors, that very beautiful coat. He wears it out into the field. And the brothers see him approaching, and they go, "Hey, I got an idea. Let's kill him. Let's kill him right here. Daddy won't see it. Nobody will know it. We're out here in the middle of nowhere. We can kill him right here. We are sick of the favorite." And one of the other brothers goes, "No, we shouldn't put his blood on our hands." And they see a hole and go, "Let's throw him in the hole. Let's throw him in the hole." And they do. And they take that pretty coat and they put blood all over it and take it back to their daddy to say, "Hey, we're sorry, but he's dead. He's gone." But before they can leave him, a caravan comes by. You remember the story. A caravan comes by, and they look and go, "We don't have to leave him in the hole. We can even make some money off of him. We can sell him into slavery and be done with him and put a little money in our pockets." This toxicity was not brand new to the family. This toxicity is now 3 generations in the way that we treat one another and that we compete with one another and we hate one another. It's passed down from generation to generation, and it's right there in the script. And if we're not careful, we can find it in our own family, home and church. They see this dysfunction as unavoidable because they're not understanding the script that they've been handed. Now, maybe it's not sibling rivalry in your family that's passed down. Maybe it's a lack of boundaries. Maybe it's addiction. Maybe it's shame that's passed down. But sometimes it takes crisis to bring attention to the family script. A lost job, a breakup. Do you know how many times on pastoral care hospital visits you completely see a family just break down into tatters because of the stress of a hospital visit? A death, maybe a secret gets shared or a child goes prodigal. But the family breaks down in that crisis. When I do premarital counseling, I use a tool called a genogram, if you've ever heard of that. A genogram goes back multiple generations. And in that genogram, we do it when we look at 2 generations. We look at your family story. We talk about mental health issues, addiction, oldest child, youngest child, blue collar, white collar, golden child, prodigal child. Are we military? Are we educated? What all of this goes. And so you're thinking there right now, remind me never to do premarital counseling with Derek. Except you think about all the stuff in your family that has worn you out, and your marriage that's worn you out. Wouldn't it have been nice to know before you walked down the aisle? To give you that tool, to give you that resource, to talk about where the struggles are, to talk about where the pain is, to talk about where the hurt is. Jen grew up in Oakland, the Bay Area. I grew up not in Oakland, the Bay Area. Pretty much the opposite. I grew up in South Georgia in rural farming communities. Our childhood, our roots have nothing in common, except when you find out her grandparents are from East Point, Georgia. And the people that raised her were very similar to the people that raised me. And so when you go back a generation and 2 generations and 3 generations, you can see commonality, and you can see the things that form us, make us who we are, and make us what we are. Once we name our scripts, we can rewrite the stories. Let's go back to Joseph. While he's in slavery and bondage, he becomes the right-hand man of Potiphar. Potiphar's like the joint chief of staff. Because Potiphar has power, Joseph becomes a man that's respected, a man of means. He becomes dependent upon by a person of influence, so that makes him a person of influence. Not only does all that happen, but the writer also makes sure that we know that Joseph is a good-looking man. Think Gary Harville. He's a good-looking man. Why does that matter? Because there's this woman named Mrs. Potiphar. Mrs. Potiphar decides, I want some of him. The scripture's a whole lot more descriptive, but we're going to leave it there. And she says, I want that. And Joseph, if he was still that punk kid that was sharing with his brothers and his dad the dream and pompous and arrogant, the story would have gone a whole lot differently. But something happens while he's in prison to where he becomes a person of depth and is able to avoid the temptation. Not only does he avoid the temptation, he says, this is not what God requires of me. And when it happens, Lady Potiphar goes, well, we're not going to have that. She grabs him by the cloak and threatens and calls and says, he's doing this. And Potiphar enters the scene and he's thrown back in jail. Joseph again back in jail, even when he did the right thing. Hear this. Even when he did the right thing, even when he is breaking the family script, even when he is breaking the family curse and he's making good decisions, people around you can still make the wrong decisions and can still cause you harm. But you have to continue to grow as a person of depth. You have to continue to choose the right, even when it's not working out for you. And so Joseph finds himself in jail, and he's jailed this time, and he receives kindness and favor from the Lord. Remember that. And it causes him to be in good favor with the warden. And through this good favor and hard work, he raises to favor with the most powerful person on earth, Pharaoh. He raises in favor to Pharaoh, and then Pharaoh has this dream that no one can interpret. And they go get this dreamer of dreams, and they bring Joseph in, and Joseph says, I can do this not because of my own power, but I can do this because of the God who lives in me. And this totally irrational, pompous, arrogant kid is now a grown man who understands that the presence that gives him peace, that gives him hope, that gives him joy is the presence of God that lives in him. And the curse is broken. The scripture over and over says that the key is this, and the Lord was with Joseph. 4 times in that very small piece, 4 times in that very small part, it says the Lord is with Joseph, and that's how he survived, and that's how the redemption occurs. A couple thousand years later, there's going to be this young woman, becomes a young mother. Her name is Mary, and she's going to have a child, and they're going to name him Emmanuel, which means the Lord is with us. The redemption, the change, the transformation occurs when you recognize that the Lord is with us. And the script that you're living in, the script that's holding you back, the script that's wearing you out, the script that's tearing you up, the curse that you've lived in with this whole life, you think this is who I am, this is who my people are, this is what I got to be. And when we receive the power of Jesus Christ, when we receive the gift of Jesus Christ into us, the curses and the scripts are broken. And we live in freedom and peace and joy and hope. Now, we love saying, as Methodists, we love saying, the Lord is with us. But do you know what I've learned to really break the script? You have to answer the question, are you with the Lord? Are you with God? Are you ready to answer the question and say, I am grateful that the Lord is with me. I am grateful that God is with me. But I'm with God. David Martin lived every day of his life with God. He shared and showed us how to do that, how to live that, and transformed and changed this place and the world and the community because he was with God. He comes from a family script. David, you may not know it well, Dr. Martin. His daddy's name was August. David's dad's name was August Martin. The Reverend August Martin, he was an evangelical United Brethren pastor up in North Dakota. When he was 32 years old, his dad, Reverend August Martin, was pastoring this small church in North Dakota. And at some point, there was this man in the church who was extremely wealthy. He was extremely wealthy, and August and he sat down and started talking, and the man said, I can give this money to the church. And August said, I'm going to keep doing this. August said, well, that's okay, but if you do that, no one else is going to have to give, ever. And if you do that, these people are not going to grow in the way that they need to grow. And it's going to create a system and create a place where people don't have to engage. So it might be great financially for the church, but it will be horrible for the soul of the church. So don't do that. The preacher said, don't write that check here. And he said, instead, our conference is racked with debt. Our conference has so much debt. Instead, write the check to pay off the debt for the conference and help fund these retirements. So when you hear this story and you think about how much David Martin hated debt, it's a part of his family script. It's a part of his family script that raised him, that taught him. And so at 32 years old, there's a 32-year-old pastor in the room right now, a child, the Reverend Catherine Davis. Imagine this, at her age, 32 years old, there was a time where the district superintendents were chosen by the preachers. We would vote on who the district superintendents would be by our colleagues, and whoever had the most respect became the district superintendent. It's not the system we use now. They voted him at 32 years old to be a district superintendent because he had the ability to look beyond today and into the future. The Reverend August Martin understood the difference between oak trees and Bradford pears. The Martin legacy is the difference between oak trees and Bradford pears. It is my prayer this afternoon, that we be a people that don't forget that legacy, that don't lose that legacy, that we live into that we live into planting trees for future generations to sit under, to dig wells for future generations to draw water. Last conversation David and I had, we were talking about the church, and he was telling me how much he loved God's light and how much seeing those numbers come back and those kids come back and those relationships come back blessed his heart so, so much. Thank you. Let's stand and sing.